Their position on gender and sexuality is deeply held, but wrong. God did not make people. Examiner coming out strong with the endorsement of God not being real. And since God didn't make them, she or he couldn't have made them as only two binary sexes. No shading allowed. Okay, so they're basically saying trans folks exist, and God is not real. Which is nice, but I hate the rest of the framing of this article. It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? The Peterborough Examiner, they released an editorial. Now, I read this earlier, just so I'm not like reading it for the first time, just to let you know. And I'm like, wow, this article is like everything we've actually been talking about on this channel so far. It's literally, okay, this editorial, I mean, like, not that it should be surprising to anyone, but it absolutely grinds my gears. So by Examiner staff. So also there's no names behind this, you know, like you could at least say which staff. You could say, hey, here's the list of our editorial board. Here's the people whose hands this runs through. As far as I know, that is not available in this. No, it's not. So, anyways, Peterborough editorial. If an entertainer's work offends you, don't go. How far should city officials go in decide? Wait, what? In deciding what people can see and hear. So, okay, this editorial board, there's a mistake in the byline here. Okay. A fabulously wealthy comedian, infamous for racial and sexist insults. Oops, what did I do? Oh no, not Jeff Dunham. Oh no, don't paywall me. Don't paywall me. All right. Let me just zoom in a little. A fabulously wealthy comedian, infamous for racial and sexist insults. Wait, what? A fabulously wealthy comedian infamous for the racial and sexist insults his act is built on, and a drag queen who was the greatest guest star at a story time reading for children walk into a bar, but not together. So, first off, they're trying to draw this comparison between the far right, of which Jeff Dunham, this comedian, this puppeteer who is coming to Peterborough, and they're acknowledging that he's racist and sexist, right here in this also right-wing publication. They're making this equation between someone in our community and a multi-millionaire celebrity. Okay. Some people might find that opening paragraph flippant or even insulting. I guess, you know, here I am. They might have already stopped reading. Nah, I want to read this trash. Sadly. It's not intended as the opening line of a joke. Oh, really? Protests in Peterborough over the coming performance of Jeff Dunham, the U.S. ventriloquist and comedian with a racist bent, and the appearance of a local drag queen, Betty Baker, at a public library reading for children last Saturday, dealt with serious concerns. Okay, so again, they're making it seem like there's this dichotomy of people who are racist and sexist and people who are being themselves, fulfilling their own identities and reading stories to children. Okay, but not so serious that either event should be called off, as protesters on both sides wanted. Again, they're instead of, these are unique incidents, right? Like, that is kind of like a general rule of thumb when we're talking about like cancel culture, is that each and every reiteration of something, it needs to be dealt with kind of like on its own merits, you know? Like, there's always a lot of nuance that goes into these situations. They're just like painting in these very broad strokes. If that sounds, wait, what? Okay, should I join the editorial board? If that sounds flippant, that racism, sexism, and the right to be something other than a traditional man or woman are not serious issues, it is because those are not the issue. This is a horribly constructed sentence, first of all. That racism, sexism, and the right to be something other than a traditional man or woman are not serious issues. They're basically saying that the right to be trans or a drag queen or even fucking wear a costume is the same as racism and sexism. So this is like they if they have a license for journalism, like it needs to be revoked. The question is how far municipal officials should go in deciding what people are allowed to hear, see, and experience. The chair of Peterborough's Community Race Relations Committee, who we talked to, Zarina Garcia, who you can see our interview on YouTube, and 3 members of City Council, including Mayor Diane Tyrion, think Dunham should not be allowed to perform at the city-owned Memorial Center, where he drew a record crowd 3 years ago. Letter to the editor time? Whatever. I'm writing it right now live. Many would agree. Okay, so I love how they're like, he might be racist, he might be sexist, but have you considered that he drew a record crowd 3 years ago? It's like, oh, okay, maybe that's part of the concern. Many would agree. Dunham's act has drawn. Many would agree. Dunham's act has drawn. Okay, another mistake. I can barely read this. I'm like, do I have low reading comprehension today? But it's like Dunham's act has drawn, continuous criticism over the several decades of his exceptionally successful career. But more, it seems, disagree. At least more of the people who are paying attention to him. Dunham is credited with selling 2 million tickets on his last tour, a record for a comedian, and his YouTube videos have more than 4 billion views. I mean, it's like, okay, no one who's popular could be racist, could they? That doesn't make sense. His shtick, are they making fun of Jewish people here, is to interview puppets. Ahmed, the dead terrorist, is perhaps the best known, and put racist and sexist insults in their mouths. His audiences presumably agree and pay to hear what they wouldn't say themselves. Okay, great. Are they saying that this record attendance is full of racists? Betty Baker is Dunham's polar opposite, an 18-year-old from Peterborough, just starting out in the drag field. Oh, they're doing drag in fields now. And trying to build a career as an entertainer. So you can't just create this false dichotomy. You know, like, how are they polar opposites? It's just that one appears to be right wing and the other, who is, as far as I know, Betty's work is not political, except in the sense that it exists, is left wing. Is that like, I feel like they're just trying to make this left is far right is bad, but also far left is bad. But don't worry, we're not going to cancel either. Her reading at the Peterborough Public Library was on Pride Day and coincided with the annual Pride Parade downtown. Like Dunham, she attracted a record crowd, an estimated 140 kids and their families. You're right. These are journalists that supposedly went to school. Yeah. Can they get their degrees revoked? The protesters who wanted Brand's reading canceled were mostly from Hill City Baptist Church. Okay. So yeah, these are the church goers, a hardline congregation of literalist Bible believers. So they interpret, I'm pretty sure that this means that they interpret the Bible literally. Like, they're not even like, wow, what a wonderful metaphor this is for like the creation of mankind. They're like, this literally happened. Like, Eve took like Adam's rib and or God took Adam's rib and made Eve. Like, they have like a hierarchy. Like there's a literal hierarchy of their existence, starting with God, and then probably men, and then probably women, and then children, and then queer folk all over there at the bottom, and presumably people of color as well. Their position on gender and sexuality is deeply held, but wrong. God did not make people. Examiner coming out strong with the endorsement of God not being real. And since God didn't make them, she or he couldn't have made them as only two binary sexes. No shading allowed. Okay, so they're basically saying trans folks exist, and God is not real. Which is nice, but I hate the rest of the framing of this article. That's simple science. Okay, thanks, examiner. Thanks for relying on simple science. The Hill City group goes with faith, which is their right. It is true, it is their right, but they are protesting the fundamental existence of a group of people, and I think that that there should be consequences for that level of hatred. Dunham's opponents are on stronger ground, factually. His jokes clearly insult minorities and women, true. However, he doesn't cross the line into inciting hatred or violence or come close. So this does definitely raise a question here, like, does racism, selling out stadiums, is that a part of inciting hatred or violence or come close? I feel like I don't have to answer. I feel like we can kind of like make that decision for ourselves, by ourselves. This is why, you know, is their entire editorial board like white men? Like, what's going on? If what he does is enough to be banned from public performances, a very large number of comedians and musicians are also in trouble. Like who? Name one example. Name one example of this, like where there's a guy who goes touring around and makes blatantly racist jokes and sexist jokes and caricatures of minority groups, and almost everywhere they go, they sell out stadiums, but also face backlash from local people who don't want to be like subjected to their racism. You know, there's very few examples. They're making it seem like this is like, don't worry, everybody's doing this. It's like there's like maybe a handful of examples. The only other example that comes to mind is Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle, you know, they cancel him every Netflix special, but there's always a next Netflix special, right? It might be true that Dave is finally canceled, but his career is fine and he's fine. And Dave Chappelle is also not coming to our community, so why the fuck does it matter? Tyrion, defending Baker's performance, defined the best approach to both situations. Okay, so here, I think they're using Diane Tyrion's words against her. Let people be free to make their own choices if they want to go see her or not. They're saying, hey, people should be free to go to drag story time, but they're taking that argument and saying also, people should be free to go and support a racist, sexist ventriloquist. All right, which, you know, maybe this isn't the best argument. Maybe it shouldn't be an argument of like, hey, people should be allowed to do this. It should be an argument of, hey, maybe people shouldn't be allowed to come here and fucking protest the existence of a group of people. The mayor, along with people who will be out protesting when Dunham performs here in November, don't see that approach applying to him, but should. So they're saying like, hey, you anti-racist, sit down. He's offensive, but that's a comedy tradition, not a crime. Protest and criticism are the right response. Censorship goes too far. So what I take away from this is that this editorial board is literally just a group of people who has never faced adversity ever. For example, if this was a Klan meeting, if this was the Ku Klux Klan meeting at the Peterborough Memorial Center, and they were like, well, what can we do? We're selling record seats. We're breaking ticket sales records. And like, you know, you can't argue with, they've got a lot of views on YouTube. It doesn't matter how racist they are. They've got billions of views on YouTube. Wouldn't that be a time to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be holding a Klan rally in our city because it's going to be harmful? And if their response to that was like, well, why don't we just like let the Klan have their rally, and all you have to do is, one, shut the fuck up about it, and two, not buy a ticket. And it's like, at what point do we actually stand up for ourselves? At what point should the people who are victims from like this style of punching down comedy, at what point should those people start fighting? And I mean, the correct answer right now is right now, because like our world increasingly more and more is becoming a dangerous place and becoming a place that is sinking into fascism and sinking into these like far right movements, pulling the entire political spectrum like rightwards. So the time right now is right now. There's examiner is saying, shut the fuck up, just don't buy a ticket. And it's the same on both sides, but it's fucking not, and it's bullshit. And the time to call the Peterborough Examiner out is also right now. So cut it.